Mandy and I welcome you back to day 27 of Reading the Bible 365. Today we're going to read in Genesis, and remember that's in the Old Testament, the first 5 books. We call that the Torah or the Law. And today we're going to look at chapters 12 to 15. Genesis 12, the call of Abram. Not Abraham. Right now he's Abram. The Lord said to Abram, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. All the peoples of the earth will be blessed through you." I got 2 great notes I'm going to read here real quick. First of all, he gave up his country, his people, friends, and family, and he went where? No questions asked. And next we see a 7-fold blessing that God was going to give him. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great. You will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. And all people of the earth will be blessed through you. So Abram left as the Lord told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. He took his wife Sarai. And that's right, she's Sarai, not Sarah yet. And his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran, and set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Moreh and Shechem. At that time, Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he went on toward the hills, east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. Then Abram set out and continued toward Negev. Now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to live there for a while because the famine was severe. As he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, "I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife.' Then they will kill me, but let you live. Say you are my sister, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you." Well, you know that's not going to end well. When Abram came to Egypt, the Egyptians saw that she was a very beautiful woman, and when Pharaoh's officials saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and she was taken into his palace. He treated Abram well for her sake, and Abram acquired sheep and cattle, male and female donkeys, men servants and maidservants, and camels. But the Lord inflicted serious diseases on Pharaoh and his household because of Abram's wife, Sarai. So Pharaoh summoned Abram. "What have you done to me?" he said. "Why didn't you tell me she was your wife? Why did you say, 'She is my sister,' so that I took her to be my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and go." Then Pharaoh gave orders about Abram to his men, and they sent him out on his way with his wife and everything he had. I like this commentary with Genesis 12, verse 7. Abram responded to God's promise by building 2 altars to the true God, one at the oak of Moreh and the other in Bethel. These altars represented public declarations of faith in the midst of a pagan environment. We may not build stone altars today, but we too should make public declarations of our faith in God, even when our society wants nothing to do with Him. Genesis 13, Abram and Lot separate. So Abram went up from Egypt to the Negev with his wife and everything he had, and Lot went with him. Abram had become very wealthy in livestock and in silver and gold. From the Negev, he went from place to place until he came to Bethel, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where his tent had been earlier, and where he had first built an altar. There Abram called on the name of the Lord. And I love that. We don't really build an altar so much to worship that, but just to make a statement and say, we believe in the one true God. Verse 5. Now Lot, who was moving about with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents. But the land could not support them while they stayed together, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to stay together. And quarreling arose between Abram's herdsmen and the herdsmen of Lot. The Canaanites and Perizzites were also living in the land at that time. So Abram said to Lot, "Let's not have any quarreling between you and me, or between your herdsmen and mine, for we are brothers. Is not the whole land before you? Let's part company. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left. Lot looked up and saw the whole plain of the Jordan was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt toward Zoar. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out toward the east. The two men parted company. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. The Lord said to Abram after Lot parted from him, "Lift up your eyes from where you are and look north and south, east and west. All the land you see I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust, then your offspring could be counted. Go, walk through the length and breadth of the land, for I am giving it to you." So Abram moved his tents and went to live near the great trees of Mamre at Hebron, where he built an altar to the Lord. I have two great notes to share with you here. First of all, Abraham gave Lot the first choice. That was really great of him. I mean, he could have said, I'm older, you're just my nephew, I brought you out, so you can just go over there. But he's like, you know what? Which way do you want to go? If you go left, I'll go right. If you go right, I'll go left. So important to give other people the first choice. I love that. And my second note says that Lot chose to go to Sodom and Gomorrah. He flirted with temptation. He chose badly. When someone gives you a choice, always make the godly choice. I think they knew what was over there, and he decided to go there because he wanted to be near the green, lush land, but that also brought him into temptation, which we're going to see coming up. And my third note says, God blessed Abram's faithfulness and gives this land to his offspring. They are numbered as dust, and that he is obedient and thankful. The dust of the earth, that's a lot of kids right there. But from Abram's line, he became Abraham, all the way down to Jesus, all those descendants. And he also is going to say later, look up and see the stars, right? Just so many children coming from him because Abram was faithful. I love this commentary. What God offered to Abram was long-term. I will give you and your offspring forever all the land that you see. Moreover, God seemed to increase his promise, now telling Abram that his descendants would multiply so dramatically that they would be innumerable as the dust of the earth. Best of all, Abram wouldn't have to do anything to make this happen. I will give it to you, God told him plainly. The beautiful part of obeying God is that you don't have to take what's yours. He gives it to you freely. All right, we are moving on to Genesis 14. Abram rescues Lot. Chapter 14. Abram rescues Lot. At this time, Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goam, went to war against Bera, king of Sodom, Birsha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar. All these latter kings joined forces in the valley of Siddim, the Salt Sea. For 12 years they have been made subject to Chedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings allied with him went out and defeated the Raphaites in Ashtaroth Karnaim, the Zuzites in Ham, the Emites in Shavath Kiriathaim, and the Horites in the hill country of Seir, as far as El Paran near the desert. Then they turned back and went to En-Mishpat, that is, Kadesh, and they conquered the whole territory of the Amalekites, as well as the Amorites, who were living in Hazazon Tamar. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar, marched out and drew up their battle lines in the valley of Siddim against Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goyim, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of tar pits, and when the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some of the men fell into them, and the rest fled to the hills. The 4 kings seized all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all their food. Then they went away. They carried off Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions, since he was living in Sodom. One who had escaped came and reported this to Abram, the Hebrew. Now Abram was living near the great trees of Mamre, the Amorite, a brother of Eshcol and Aner, all of whom were allied with Abram. When Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive, he called out the 318 trained men born in his household, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. During the night, Abram divided his men to attack them, and he routed them, pursuing them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. He recovered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions, together with the women and the other people. After Abram returned from defeating Chedorlaomer and the kings allied with him, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, that is, the king's valley. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of God Most High, and he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. The king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the people and keep the goods for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have raised my hand to the Lord Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and have taken an oath that I will accept nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or the thong of a sandal, so that you will never be able to say, I made Abram rich. I will accept nothing but what my men have eaten, and the share that belongs to the men who went with me. To Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them have their share. So I love at the end there, he's offered some goods, but he says, you know what, I'm not going to take anything, because he's not depending on man. He's depending on God to bless him and grow him as a family and grow him as a nation. And so that's really important. We need to trust God, not men. Now we get to chapter 15, God's covenant with Abram. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abram said, O sovereign Lord, what can you give me, since I remain childless, and the one who will inherit my estate is Eleazar of Damascus? And Abram said, You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. Then the word of the Lord came to him. This man will not be your heir, but a son coming from your own body will be your heir. He took him outside and said, Look up at the heavens and count the stars. If indeed you can count them, he said, so shall your offspring be. Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. A couple really important points right there. First, he's saying that I'm old, so I'll have a servant, and I have over here. Abram and Sarai were childless, and it's very painful to wait. But God had a plan, but Abram has a plan B, but God says to wait. That's hard sometimes, right? We're waiting and waiting. We think, okay, God, I'm waiting on your plan, and God has plan A, and we have to wait a little longer. We get tired, and what do? We do plan B, which sometimes is not a good thing. We need to learn to wait on the Lord. And I love it. He says, look up, look at the stars of the sky. And I think about that. It's like when he looked up, one of those stars was for me, because we're all part of Abraham's family, because we're all believers in Christ. Okay, verse 7. He also said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to take possession of it. But Abram said, O sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? So the Lord said to him, Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Abram brought all these to him, cut them in two, and arranged the halves opposite each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. Then the birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. As the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, Know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and they will be enslaved and mistreated for 400 years. And right there he's talking about Egypt, where they went and they were slaves for 400 years. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterwards they will come out with great possessions. You, however, will go to your fathers in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the 4th generation, your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. When the sun had set and darkness had fallen, a smoking firepot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, To your descendants I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river Euphrates, to the land of the Kenites, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Rephaites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites. And again, don't forget those termites. Let's read a commentary about these visions. The strange details are important to what happens next. God renewed his covenant with Abram, giving a few more specifics about the promised land, and letting Abram know about Israel's future exile in Egypt. The key detail, though, is that God alone, in the form of a smoking firepot and flaming torch, passed through the path of the torn animals. Covenants like this one were supposed to have 2 people involved. Both parties to the covenant were supposed to walk between the slain animals, signaling that if either one broke their side of the agreement, he would suffer a fate like one of the animals. God's covenant then was radically unique. Abram wasn't even awake when it was made, so he couldn't walk the covenant out. God walked through for both of them, promising to bear the fatal burden if either of them broke the covenant. Centuries later, after mountains of human sin had accumulated, the Son of God bore the covenant penalty on the cross of Calvary. And this just brings me to tears because he made a covenant. And like he's saying, what's supposed to happen is both people are supposed to walk through. And then they see the dead animals and they're like, they promise to keep it because they don't want to be, dead and slain like the animals. But Abram couldn't even walk through because he was in a deep sleep. But God did this for us. He loves you. He loved you so much. And here we see, even in Genesis, thousands of years before Jesus and before we're here today, that he made a promise that he was going to provide a way out with all the sin, that he was going to bless Abram to be a mighty nation, but they were going to have to, because of some of their sins, they're going to go to Egypt for a while, right? They're going to be there for 400 years, but then they're going to be delivered. And then God is going to do away with all the sacrifices by having Jesus be the sacrifice once and for all. And so I just love how God just shows his love for us over and over again. And I hope you can see that in Genesis today. I hope you enjoyed this reading today, Genesis 12 to 15. And be sure to come back again tomorrow for more of God's Word as together we read this Bible all the way through. See you then. And if you enjoyed this, I hope you would give us a little thumbs up here. And also, I would love if you would subscribe to my channel. Also, I would love to answer any question you may have about faith in Jesus, the Christmas story, Easter story, anything at all. So if you want to leave a comment below, or you can contact me through my website, which is nancyjoy2u.com. That's nancyjoy, the number 2, the letter U.com. You can also email me at nancyjoy2u@gmail.com.